My name is Rachel Keane. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the founder of the Data Inspiration Group and the Dig Data Programme, which essentially is a virtual work experience offering that develops data literacy and digital skills for students across secondary and tertiary education. So I founded Dig Data in 2021. Very, very proud of what we've achieved so far. We're working with approximately 2,500 schools, 105 universities, and we have more than 20,000 students that use our platform to develop data literacy skills and gain virtual work experience. We have developed resources that are available online, on site, and also in the classroom. And we've worked with some incredible industry partners to date, but we are very, very excited about our new partnership with NHS England, and we are now the official schools and university outreach partner. We will be assisting them essentially with their drive to build a diverse workforce and to signpost more students to their data apprenticeships, placement and graduate schemes. So we've designed a partnership, some of which you may know because we've had probably 6,000 students across the UK that are going to be attending events yesterday and today to gain virtual work experience. You've probably seen all of our emails. We've designed a partnership that offers work experience, a classroom resource that aligns to the master curriculum that will be available for you guys soon, career panel events such as this that invites career professionals so that we can really educate you on what's going on at the NHS from a data perspective, the breadth of roles, the skills required. And we'll also be hosting, as part of National Apprenticeship Week, on Tuesday, the 11th of February, a live online recruitment briefing where we'll be inviting parents, students and educators to attend at 6:30 in the evening for a 60-minute session where we can really delve deeper into what skills the NHS are looking for, the application and recruitment process, and an opportunity for students and parents to meet some of our NHS data apprentices. We want this session to dispel the myth that data careers are only for maths geniuses or computer fanatics, and that every role requires coding or data science skills, because this is just simply not the case. We all use data and information every single day to run reports, make decisions, deliver presentations, but we don't call ourselves data professionals, and all our careers require data literacy skills, regardless of the job title or in the industry sector. So this session will give you the opportunity to learn more from our panelists today and understand the incredible, impactful career opportunities that await your students from the typical frontline doctor and nurses that we often relate to the NHS and healthcare. So what to expect? We'll start today's session with an introduction from our keynotes, which is Sarah Blundell and Lavelle. Give a wave, please, guys. Thank you. We are then going to be moving on where you're going to meet our data apprentices, Asta, Syeda and Rohan, who are going to share their journeys and experiences to date. And then we've got a session that will be meeting our apprenticeship and recruitment experts. We've got Naveed, Tuli, Lorraine and Peter. So without further ado, I think we should start this session with Sarah Blundell and Andy Lavelle. If you could please introduce yourselves.
Well, after a run-up like that, we better do a good job, Andy? So I'm Sarah Blundell. I'm the lead for data and analytics development and professionalisation across England for NHS England, and my amazing cohort partner in crime is Andy Lavelle.
Thank you very much. Andy Lavelle, Senior Manager for Analytical Professionalisation working at NHS England.
So we're here today because we've been kicking off an initiative called the NHS Data and Analytics Academy. It launches in April this year. There's sort of 4 areas that we're trying to cover as part of that, which is to sort of cover the full life cycle of data and analytics careers development. And pillar 1 of that is new entry talent. Looking at how we would diversify and really promote the opportunities of data careers out to as many people as we can. There are so many opportunities for people that are basically active and interested in data, and it's a fantastic career. I've been doing it now for 19 years. Andy, how long have you been doing it?
Too long. 35 years this year.
Yeah. And we've basically both had the opportunity to transfer and work all over the country and develop our careers. So we already know it's a fantastic place to come and work. And the purpose of the academy and this outreach work is to make that awareness sort of more universal, etc. So we've got a few things that obviously we want to cover, one of which is sort of understanding why we think it's really important to really diversify what we're doing and to talk about the impact that we think data has on healthcare. You've worked all over the different parts of the system. Have you got any specific examples you can think of how data and analytics has really transformed, like, how care has been delivered in those, was it 34, 35 years of you working in the NHS?
There's lots of instances where I can think of, when I've worked at organisations who have been thinking about where we're going to locate new diagnostic centres to, and there's a whole raft of work that gets done on that into, travel times for people, working out where people are coming from, to try and make sure we've found the best location for that, right the way through to some of the stuff that we've been doing about, that predictive analytics and not just looking at who's walking through the door for accident and emergency at the moment, but then thinking about, well, actually looking at that cohort of people, how does that demographic change over the future? So what's likely to be driving the patterns of activity moving forwards? And always with me in aspects like that, we're thinking about actually us and people that are doing marketing are very similar about trying to understand that market, what's driving them, what those things are that are going to get them to engage in services. So there's been some, fantastic examples of where data has helped add those insights into making those decisions.
And obviously, one of the things we're really, really keen on is ensuring that the work that we're doing is building this diverse workforce. It's really important that the workforce doing data and analytics represents the community from which the NHS is serving, that's the community it's serving. And obviously the NHS itself is really active in promoting inclusive recruitment practices, trying to partner with diverse educational institutions, community organisations to reach underrepresented groups, to offer the full range of different recruitment mechanisms to come in. So it isn't a requirement for people to have necessarily gone to university to be able to come into a data and analytics career, etc. But where people have gone out and gone into university, actually also then bringing and pulling people, as Rachel has mentioned, not just from computer science areas, not just from mathematics. Actually, there's such a broad range of careers within data and analytics that require things like storytelling skills, that require people to have really fantastic abilities to visualize. Actually, there are lots of roles coming along now for people who've come from more of that creative background, because it's all about how do we translate data into impacts with the right clinician groups or patient groups, etc. And having those fantastic design skills really do help with a lot of that sort of real cutting edge areas of work. And then of course there's still absolute places for those people that really love coding and experience and backgrounds, because obviously there's that full range of data and analytics roles within that. So what we're trying to do obviously as part of the work is sort of really professionalize what we're doing to have this impact on sort of the future health and care. We want to try and make health and care be recognized as one of the best places to work as a data professional, and a lot of the initiatives we're doing about developing and building those career pathways for people, making it really transparent about how they can progress, and the academy there to support people as they go along with their learning and development, opportunities to comprehensive training programs with certification, etc., in data and analytics and data science and related fields, to sort of really help people develop the tools and methodologies they need to really effectively harness data. So obviously that advice for educators, for people who are wanting to inspire their students to explore data careers in healthcare, what would be your top tips for people if they take 5 things back to their staff, other than obviously what the guys are going to talk about later in a few minutes around their own experiences of running these schemes, but from your experience?
I think from the one thing that I think is crucial, having an ability, to feel comfortable with numbers is great, but having a natural curiosity of wanting to try and understand what's making certain things happen, why is that happening, what would happen if we did something differently, I think is a key thing. And certainly, Sarah, you touched there on the the discussion about, professionalisation. I think my career, I was thinking about it, is like, travelling from where I am in the Midlands down to Cornwall, but not using the motorway and without a map, in the dark and no lights on. That's kind of my career's kind of pinged along. What we're working towards now is giving far more structured career pathways to people so that we can start to help articulate what their learning journeys are going to be when they come into the health service, so that to grow as a data professional, you're going to be doing that now in a far more structured way, supported way, that you can build your learning, that you can build your skills, that you can evidence them, and on this kind of journey that we're trying to take to professionalize the workforce. And for me, that's a really exciting opportunity, because rather than just that kind of, stumbling into a town or whatever, saying, oh, here I am, and it's very nice. Now you've actually got a plan, you can see how you can start to progress your skills. You can start to see the opportunities. We talk about data as one single, kind of family entity, but currently we've got 7 different specific roles that you can do within there, and people understanding that and how they can specialize and how they can get into these different areas, I think makes it a really exciting and challenging place to work. And above all, for me, and I know so many analysts that I speak to about the health service, is you do always think, when you're in the NHS, the people that are doing the hard stuff are the doctors, the nurses, the clinical staff that are seeing the patients face to face. But your ability through using your skills to make impacts on patient care, to help make sure that people are having the experiences and the best outcomes that we want by looking at, monitoring, evaluating that data and providing feedback to provide that continual improvement and driving services forward, I think it's just such a unique opportunity to use the kind of skill set that comes within a data and analytics, that critical thinking, that, being able to provide insights as to what's going on. I just think is an amazing thing to have, and to work with some fantastically talented clinicians as well. It's just a brilliant thing. So for me, working in the health service is just a wonderful opportunity to use the skills and ways of working that I have and the colleagues that I work with in such an impactful way on people's lives.
Brilliant. So Rachel, I think we're back over to you now.
We absolutely are. I've got a very quick question. Somebody's put in the chat very quickly. Lady here who is in a school. So she, even though you are referring to schemes in England, can any Scottish students apply? At least 50% of her students go on to study in England.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. I thought that might be the case, but I didn't want to answer on your behalf. Great. So Steph, please do stay on the call, because I think you're going to find this really interesting. So I'd really like to move on now to our data apprenticeship panel. And if we could ask Rohan to introduce himself, followed then by Syeda, and then also by Asta, that would be great. And we can kick the session off.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rohan, and I'm a apprentice software developer at Arden & Gem. And basically, I dropped out of university in my 3rd year, not knowing what to do with, what I wanted to do. I was doing chemical engineering at Surrey, and I just didn't know if that was the career that I wanted to stick with for the rest of my life. So I had a passion for coding. I was learning to code by myself at home. And when the opportunity for the data apprenticeship came, I knew I had to jump onto it. So that's why I switched to a data apprentice.
Fantastic. Well, we'll go to question number 1 in a minute, Rohan, but thank you so much for that introduction. Syeda, are you able to introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Syeda. I'm a regional trainer within the NHS, Arden & Gem CSU. I recently pursued a qualification in learning and development. I don't have an outwardly obvious data role, but data plays a really important part in my day-to-day, where I make decisions and I'm responsible for creating solutions. So that is what my day-to-day consists of.
Fantastic. And Asta, over to you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Asta Breiteryte. I'm from the London Northwest University Healthcare, and I'm currently doing my second apprenticeship.
Fantastic. So we've touched on it very quickly, but I think we should reiterate it. Question number one, can you guys share with me what inspired you to pursue a data apprenticeship rather than another career or higher education? Now, I know there's a little bit of crossover here. So Rohan, let's go back to you. You mentioned previously that you went to university, you dropped out in your third year, you were doing chemical engineering, I believe. What was that sort of turning point when you said, you know what, actually, this just isn't for me. What am I going to do? Tell us what that was about.
I just found that I didn't really have a passion for chemicals and fluid dynamics that I thought I did have, and it wasn't something that, you know, after school, after year 13, it was one of those things that I just went along. You know, my parents were like, yeah, this is a good field. I had new family friends who were doing it and they were quite successful. So I was like, yeah, okay, makes sense. Let me just go in this field as well. Turns out it wasn't something I was passionate about at all. And I switched to the data apprenticeship because I really enjoy coding. As I really enjoy coding. I really like to create something. And yeah, when the opportunity came from NHS, I jumped on it. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Syeda, do you want to tell us, you know, why you decided to pursue a data apprenticeship?
So after I left sixth form, I really didn't know what I wanted to study. All my friends around me had secured places in universities, but I couldn't see myself commit to studying for 3 years in a subject that I wasn't passionate about at all. So this apprenticeship really sparked an opportunity because I wanted to continue further education, but I also wanted to gain hands-on experience, especially because I was considering a career within the NHS. And what really drew me into it was that I could gain hands-on experience and learn transferable skills that would allow me to work in a professional world from quite early on.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you. Asta?
For me, it's similar as Rohan's. However, I did completed my university, but I was having no clue what I want to do. So I joined NHS as a volunteering, and once I got the full-time job, I started working on the Excel sheets, and I was really inspired looking at other people who has knowledge about it, how they implement, you know, formulas and present the visuals to the team. Then it was the time when I spoke to my manager and she suggested, why don't you do something with data in apprenticeship? That was really beneficial decision that I made.
Thank Crunchy for your manager, right? That's all I can say on that one. Right, let's move on to question 2. Can you tell us more about the training you've received, both technical and soft skills? And I'm going to pop that one over to Rohan, if I may.
Yeah, so technical and soft skills. So technical skills, you know, basic stuff like C#, JavaScript, Python, and SQL. All of that you get taught whilst working on the job. And also we have Firebrand, which is our training provider. And they're really helpful as well. You've got a one-to-one mentor with them that, you know, helps you track all your technical stuff, but also your soft skills as well. So whether it's presenting, you know, communication, anything, you get a tracker that you fill in, I think every month or every other month, and it really helps you track, you know, how you're progressing, even in your soft skills. So that really helped me. I'm now like, you know, holding client demos and stuff like that, which I never thought I would be doing. So yeah, it's the apprenticeship really helps you track and progress in both technical and soft skills.
And to grow, I guess, as well, right? Because, I mean, I can see the sort of smile on your face now you're sort of reiterating what you've actually learned. Sometimes when you tell somebody else, that's when you can kind of see that growth pattern. Syeda, tell us a little bit about the technical and soft skills that you've developed.
So before training, I had very little knowledge of data skills. I always had the assumption you needed to be an expert coder. But throughout my training, I learned how to identify patterns and trends. I was able to analyze data to make informed decisions. And in terms of soft skills, I considered myself a very timid person before, and this experience has allowed me to show my confidence in delivery. I'm more confident in working as part of a multidisciplinary team, and I've met some amazing people along the way, which has really helped with my interpersonal skills.
And I guess you probably wouldn't have gone on a career panel live, no? Probably a year ago. There you go. There you go. Fantastic. It's so wonderful to see. Asta, tell us about your technical and soft skills training.
So technical skills would be a deep understanding of Excel, Power BI dashboard creations, forecasting of data. And these tools help me work with data, create dashboards, and really understand the numbers. For soft skills, I learned how to create and deliver presentations to stakeholders. This is all about bringing the data to life, turning raw numbers into meaningful insights that help the NHS make smart, informed decisions. It's been a mix of learning the technology and also how to communicate in the way that makes an impact to lots of patients and staff.
Fantastic. And I think storytelling is probably one of those key skills that we need to pick up a bit later, Sarah and Andy and Lorraine and Peter, because actually they are really, really important in any kind of data career. So let's pick that up a little bit. Let's move on to question 3. So what have been the biggest challenges transitioning into a data apprenticeship role, and how have you overcome that? Rohan, let's go back to you.
So I started, despite learning how to code, I was only studying Python, and turns out I needed C# mainly for this job. And so basically I had little to no coding experience like that I could actually transfer straight to work. But despite that, I just want to thank Peter and Lorraine as well. They've managed to organize everything for us and really have a whole separate team that looks after your apprenticeship side of things, that doesn't let work, consume you and not focus on your apprenticeship. So so with little to no coding experience, I can manage projects on my own. I'm working on projects by myself right now. And I'd say the main challenges for a new person would be handling apprenticeship work and actual work that you have to, deadlines that you have. But I'd say to a new person joining, don't worry about it, because we have an amazing team that will support you throughout the whole journey as well.
And one thing that you mentioned earlier as well when we were chatting is that actually working in a team environment, because I guess sometimes when you go at university, most of the courses that you're doing, right, you're kind of siloed. You go to your lecture, you come back, you get prepared, either do coursework on your own, or you're doing exams on your own. But now you go into like a beast like the NHS, it's not like you can just sort of keep yourself to yourself. How did you find that?
Yeah, so just that was like the biggest learning kind of thing for me as well, because I was coding. I think most of the learning is online anyway. Mm-hmm. So you are learning stuff by yourself. You can learn stuff by yourself, but you can never get that real hands-on, work experience that you get with an apprenticeship. So
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Syeda, tell us a little bit about your biggest challenge transitioning.
I think the biggest challenge for me was transitioning from a full-time classroom environment in college and then stepping into the world of work, especially because I'd started with a remote role. And it was really daunting at first because I thought I was missing out on that social aspect like all of my friends. But I remember having conversations with Lorraine, for example, and she shared her experiences, how she also had to transition as well. So I think knowing that there are a lot of people in a similar position and given meaningful advice really helps. And I got to know along the way that there are lots of perks working from home.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely they are. And you know, everyone on here now is going to want every apprentice to work with Lorraine. And Peter, I hope you've got plans to seriously expand your team. Asta, over to you. What do you feel that was your biggest challenge transitioning into a data apprenticeship?
For me, one of the biggest challenges has been balancing work and studying at the same time. You have to give up some of your free time. Obviously, you have to park some of the Netflix or something. You have to sacrifice something on your behalf to complete the apprenticeship within the set of time frame. However, the NHS does provide time each week to study. They will support you with giving the data that you need. And another thing is that it's been especially tricky because I have kids. So juggling children and studying it has been, even a bigger challenge, especially now that I'm working on my level 4 qualification. However,
Brilliant.
for school and college leavers, you would likely have more time to focus on studies, but you should be always ready to sacrifice some of your time if you want to succeed, because it's definitely worth it at the end.
Absolutely, that nice wise words. I'm just conscious of time, and I know we've got another panel coming up, so I'm going to skip out question 4, guys, and move straight on to what advice would you give someone considering a data apprenticeship, especially in a field as critical as healthcare? Rohan, over to you.
The advice I'd give is I'd tell them that data apprenticeship with NHS is a great choice, but you are also working with patient data and patient confidentiality, GDPR rules and stuff. So you got to be a bit careful because if you do accidentally mess up, you are kind of putting not just your work at risk, but actual information that patients have. But despite that, there are a lot of safety measures in place, so not to worry too much. Also, another thing I'd say is, if you're not sure what you want to do, if you'd like some hands-on experience and you'd like to get into working straight away and get that work experience, which is, I personally, for me, that is, that has helped me grow tremendously compared to just, learning, looking at lectures and, doing exams. So yeah, I'd say if you want that hands-on experience and want to really push your growth, and if you're not sure, I'd say this is a great opportunity.
Fantastic.
Sure,
Thank you for sharing that, Rohan. Syeda, your thoughts? What's your advice?
So I think an organisation like the NHS is a very vast place. We see the amazing work that the doctors and nurses do on the front line, but you also get a really good understanding as to what goes on behind the scenes. And there's always something for everyone. So even if you're unsure of where to start, there will always be an opportunity where you can potentially progress or go to explore something new. And the bonus is that you earn and learn at the same time.
Well, you can't argue with that. Earning and learning sounds like an absolute great idea. Asta, tell me, what would your advice be in considering a data apprenticeship, especially in healthcare?
So data is everywhere in the NHS as well as any other organization. It's becoming more important in everyday lives. It's crucial for, to determine the urgent patients, the lists, the doctors, everything is around it. So I would strongly advise, to choose any of pathways in apprenticeship with data. There are lots of to choose. There is different varieties, and it's only a year and a half. So if you think that might not be 100% you can always try changing it. And there is always a people to help you with anything you need. So there is a really big support.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess the thing is as well, I was talking to Sarah earlier in the week, is, you know, not only can you kind of develop your data skills and move into different data areas, but actually if you think of all the domains in the NHS, which is, you know, the breadth of those is vast, is that you could really hop around the NHS for the whole of your career and be learning every single day, which I think is incredibly exciting and impactful. You know, and we all know and have used the NHS, you know, and we all rely on it. So to be part of that must be super, super rewarding. Last question on here. So what advice would you give a student, Rohan, who's unsure whether to undertake an apprenticeship or go to university? Let's be honest, you're talking from the horse's mouth there. You did both. So tell us, what would you do?
So, I mean, university is good if for certain roles you need a university degree, I'd say. But if you're unsure and if you want to gain that hands-on experience and, you know, really get started with your career, and I'd say an apprenticeship is a good choice. Working with the NHS, like you just mentioned, yeah, it's also rewarding. You know, it's not just that I'm learning stuff, working, but I'm also able to give back, which is in itself quite meaningful and, you know, quite rewarding in itself. So, yeah, I'd say if someone's unsure, really think what learning style suits them. If you like the hands-on, then get on with the apprenticeship. You'll get knowledge from actual people who are working, using you know, that knowledge in real work. Whereas if you prefer lectures and want to pursue a, you know, a certain career like medicine, for example, like as a doctor, then yeah, you would have to go through university. So
That's fantastic. Thank you for your advice. Syeda, tell us, what would your advice be now to a student?
My advice would be to do what you think is best for you. So when I was making the judgment to either go university or doing an apprenticeship, I really couldn't see myself studying again for 3 years on something I wasn't passionate about. And there is always something for everyone. So even if you're unsure of where you even want to go in terms of your career, it's good to start somewhere and then you can work your way up with the opportunities. And depending on the course you take, you can actually finish more earlier than how long it would take for a degree. So a degree usually takes 3 years. I finished my apprenticeship in 18 months.
Blimey, you did well. And I think we should just say to everyone, would I be right in saying that you got a distinction in your apprenticeship? So
Yes.
Let's do a little bit of a shout out for that. Well done. Congratulations. There you go. Thumbs up from Asta. Asta, what's your piece of advice? What would you give?
If you are unsure whether to choose an apprenticeship or go to university, here is something to consider. The role I have now required a degree, but it was my apprenticeship that really helped me to build the skills and experience I needed to grow. The great thing about the apprenticeship is that you can start it any time of your life, and it's hands-on way to learn, gain real world experience, and build with valuable skills, all while earning a qualification.
Fantastic. And I just want to say that was just awesome. Thank you guys for joining the panel. I know it was all your first time of doing one. I just found it fantastic, and I'm sure everyone in the audience did. Thank you so much, and I'm sure it's been so insightful for everyone here. Please do stay on because there might be some questions at the end, but we're going to move very swiftly on. I'm conscious of time here. We're going to move on now to our apprenticeship experts. So we have, do we have Naveed on the call today? Naveed, Amina, Tuli, Allen, I know we've got you. We'll do an intro in a minute. We've got Peter Glover and Lorraine Churchill. So Lorraine, why don't we start with an introduction from you?
Okay, hi, as I said, I'm Lorraine Churchill. I'm the BI Data Development Lead at Arden and Gem CSU. So one of my roles is to manage the data apprentices that we've got coming through at the moment. A lot of them are moving into their endpoint assessment now, so it's been wonderful to see, like Rohan, grow and get more confident in his approach to things and skills and that. So yes, that's where I am.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Lorraine. Peter, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Pete Glover. I've spent the majority of my career in the NHS as a frontline clinician and in primary care. And for the last 3 years, I've been employed by Arden and Gem, which is a clinical support team. and I've migrated my skills into training, change and adoption. So essentially taking innovation and making it regulated and then implementing that so it's everyday business. And in the last 18 months, I've had the privilege of being one of the graduate managers, supporting Nazifa, Syeda and the rest of the team develop and enhance. And it's been a real privilege. And I hope, if nothing else, that you take away from today, you take away that passion is key, even if you don't know anything else. And as you see in our apprenticeships, that's what drives them. And it's been a real privilege to work with them. So thanks, Rachel.
No worries. Thank you. Tilly, over to you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me along today. My name is Tilly Allen. I am the NHS and Public Sector Accounts Director at Cambridge Spark. And Cambridge Spark are a specialist training provider. But my team's role is to educate employers, many of which are NHS organisations, as to identifying where the skills gaps are when it comes to data and helping them find a solution, including apprenticeships that help them bridge that gap and support their workforce.
Fantastic, thank you. Last but by no means least, Naveed, where are you? Can you introduce yourself, please?
I am here, Rachel. Hi, everyone. So
here he is.
I'm Naveed Amini. I'm a senior program manager in the national team. So it's the digital profession team at NHS England. So our team currently is looking at professionalising the digital roles within the NHS nationally. And as part of that, I look after apprenticeships currently. And I can also say I'm kind of a living example of how versatile the NHS is, because I joined NHS England in 2012 as a junior programme support officer. Now, I'd done a degree in architecture, so it had nothing to do with the NHS. And then since then, I've had a multitude of roles, from being a business manager to a project manager to now a senior program manager. So it's so versatile. And then I've worked across the board on digital roles, as well as clinical projects as well. So yeah, it's a really, really fantastic place to work, the NHS.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Right, let's kick this off. Tilly, let's start with you. There's a breadth of data apprenticeship schemes available nationally within the NHS. Can you tell us a little bit about the range of apprenticeship schemes? And I mean, look, we haven't got all afternoon. I'm sure there's hundreds of them, but if we could have sort of like, a real kind of range of different skills that Cambridge Spark deliver, entry level, and how qualifications can continue further.
Of course. Yeah, so I mean, you're absolutely right, Rachel. There are so many apprenticeship options and programs in general, but Cambridge Spark are specialists in data and AI apprenticeship training. So we only deliver programs that support that upskilling. And the way that we do that is we work under the concept of a data academy. So the idea is that our apprenticeships can support somebody through their career progression. And we've heard a couple of examples of that already today. So we start with a level 3, what we call data citizen program. And to the point that people have been making about, sometimes the word data can be scary if you're not a data professional. The data citizen program is a prime example of where a program supports people in a very broad range of roles. So administrators, technicians, coordinators. If you're using Excel spreadsheets, if you're running reports, it's all about developing that mindset of how to use data at very early stages of someone's career, so that they take that mindset with them. And then our apprenticeships kind of span all the way through up to level 7. So we have data analyst apprenticeships, data engineering apprenticeships, data science, and kind of everything in between. But one thing I really wanted to stress, and a couple of people have said it before, but I think it's really important, everybody comes into contact with data, whether they think they do or not. And so there should be an apprenticeship program that supports someone's development if they're working with data at whatever level, in whatever role they have.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And thank you for stressing that, because like you say, we're all using data, but I by no means would call myself a data analyst. Okay, Lorraine, let's move swiftly on to you. What skills and personal attributes do you look for in potential data apprentices, and how can educators really help students develop these?
Well, as Andy mentioned earlier, it's curiosity is the first thing that we like to see in our apprentices when we interviewed them, and that's a curiosity to want to experiment and learn new skills. Excel, obviously, skills are important as well, and to research new technology, things like your Power BI as well, and maybe even attending some independent boot camps to develop their own skills. Just so it's just that thirst, I think, for the knowledge and the new stuff that coming in, I think we look for when we were appointing our apprentices.
Fantastic. And of course, we can always signpost them to digdata.online and do the NHS virtual work experience where they can develop their Excel skills. So, Peter, we'll come to you. Could you walk us through the application process for NHS data apprenticeships and share tips for candidates to stand out? Now, I appreciate that could be quite a lengthy process. So can we just sort of pinpoint it, because some resource links will be sent to everybody on the call today?
So firstly, get an account with NHS Track or NHS Jobs and Mail. That's where majority of the apprenticeships will be advertised. Set up your profile, make sure that your account details are correct. So make sure that your email is correct, your mobile phone is correct, all those little things that can trip you up. Set your pro formas and what you're interested in up nice and early, but then make sure that the application is tailor-made to the opportunity that you want. Don't use ChatGPT. This is where we want you to shine as an individual, and make sure that although you meet the minimum requirements, expand on what it is that excites you and why you want to go forward in the role.
Brilliant. That sounds excellent. And just a quick question. I mean, like Lorraine just mentioned now, obviously, if you've got any kind of sort of evidence to support your Excel skills, what you've done, you know, actually sometimes when you undertake experiences and you thought you'd really enjoy them and you didn't, but you took one thing away from them, right? That's something that you could perhaps bring into an application, or indeed it could unveil a skill that you didn't even realize that you had. So I guess it's, you know, bringing that all to the forefront. Tilly, let's go back to you. How does the NHS and its apprenticeship providers like Cambridge Spark ensure apprentices receive the training and support needed to succeed in their roles?
I think this is a really interesting question, actually, because there are a number of things that have to happen in order for that to take place. But with any apprenticeship and the way that they work, and in my opinion, why they're so successful is that not only does an individual learn the knowledge and the skills that they need, but they're then required to demonstrate their application of that knowledge in a practical sense. So any good training provider will take a lot of time up front to make sure that the content of the apprenticeship is aligned to the role that that individual will do. And there are a number of ways that that can happen. So from a Cambridge Spark perspective, it's all about educating our clients, so our NHS organisations, by running insight sessions, for example. We take time to have one-to-one conversations with the line manager of the individual and the organisation to make sure that it does match up with the apprenticeship programme that they're going to be on, making sure that everybody in that process is fully aware of the commitment that's required. Asta mentioned that before, and that's really important. And it's not about quantity. If you're speaking to a training provider, it's not about how many people they can get onto the apprenticeship programs. It's who and why those people are joining the apprenticeship programs. And for us, when we're working with our NHS organisations, this is even more important because we know time is precious and we know that that requirement can be challenging. So one thing that we will do is monitor the impact and progress that our apprentices have in the organisation, so we can keep feeding that back to the client and they can see, you know, this 6 hours a week that someone's having to commit, actually you're getting that back tenfold because of what they're able to achieve. But it's all about education, making sure that it's the right programme for the right person at that time, and giving them all the information they need to make that informed decision.
Fantastic. And actually, Tilly, after this, if you can share some links to Cambridge Spark with me, I'd love to include that in our resources for the educators and career professionals on the call today, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
No worries. Naveed, let's hear from you. You're currently designing a digital apprenticeship toolkit for NHS providers. How are you going to attract candidates from diverse educational backgrounds? And why is this important in the data profession? Quite a big question.
Yeah, so basically, in terms of equality and diversity, so there's so many aspects to it, because we sit at the national level, and in terms of trying to promote equality and diversity, we can only recommend it to the system, and providers themselves have to have their own equality and diversity policies that they have to follow. But the great thing is that when I'm pushing something out like the apprenticeship toolkit, I can add things in there which point people, providers, to equality and diversity, and explain how that can help within their organization. So one of the things I talk about is broadening candidate pools. So that helps with engaging with schools, college, community organizations, and looking at it regionally as well, because some regions might be more ethnically diverse than other regions as well. So it's about understanding how you can tap into that, what methods you can get in touch with a particularly minority ethnic group. So I've been on a talk actually recently, and there was an apprentice there that was BAME, and they talked about how useful it was for an organization to come into their school specifically to target the Black students there, and that made them more inclined to want to work with that organization. So it's about sort of trying to target those specifically in ways that will interest them as well. So it's also about focusing on skills rather than formal qualifications. So even some of the panelists earlier, they spoke about having a particular skill or a qualification, and then we've had questions as well, people asking about qualifications. I think one of the good things about apprenticeships is that you don't need a formal qualification if you're coming at a junior level. You'd need your GCSEs or A levels particularly, but the apprenticeship is a qualification in itself, so it trains you and gets you to the level that you need to in a particular field, and it's flexible as well, so you can move around a bit.
Fantastic, thank you.
No problem.
I was going to actually sort of move on from that question. Say, how are you encouraging more NHS organisations to use apprenticeships, friendship pathways? We've talked about attracting more candidates to come to the NHS through that pathway, but how are we encouraging more NHS organisations? Because as you know, there's hundreds of them around the country, right?
There is. So from my perspective, we've already just spoken about. So we pushed out a digital apprenticeship toolkit because I work in the digital team. We're promoting digital apprenticeships within the NHS, and we're telling providers that this is a good way for you to fill vacant roles at the moment, because a lot of digital roles within the NHS organisations are going unfilled.
Right.
For various reasons, but what happens is that then organization may lose that role the next year. They won't be able to re-advertise because of funding issues. So we're asking them to look at apprenticeships as a viable solution to get staff in and actually train them up then into that role as well. So the way we're doing it, I'm looking at showcasing success stories. So within the toolkit, we're looking at all apprentices that have been through that journey. I'm collaborating with educational institutes as well. So I'm talking to schools, colleges, universities, etc., to see how we can bring in a pipeline of candidates. One of the things we can do as well is offer clear pathways to outline specific career progression as well. So I know we've had questions around that in terms of how can we join and where can we go. So I think that's really important as well, to outline the career progression routes for digital apprentices within the NHS.
Agreed.
And then I think some organisation might not be aware of the apprenticeship levy, so we're trying to push that and make them aware of it and how they can utilise that to pay for the training. And then other things, maybe developing mentorship programmes as well, creating resource hubs. And then from a national perspective, it's doing national campaigns as well. So trying to advertise jobs within the NHS, or advertising to providers the utilisation of apprenticeships within the NHS.
Fantastic, Naveed. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm very conscious of time, So I'm gonna go through these next 3 questions. Peter, I'm going to go with you first of all. Are there any regional differences in NHS data apprenticeship opportunities, and how do you ensure accessibility for candidates across the UK?
I think the obvious answer is yes, there's always going to be regional differences, but actually it's how we support and manage those differences that empower the individual to get the right education to feel equipped to do the role most successfully. And the way that I would demonstrate that is that within AGM, we've realised that a lot of work is remote working. So all our apprenticeships had a DSE assessment. We provided equipment, everything from monitors to tables to office chairs and equipment at home, but also when there was a need to travel, that was factored into their salary, and we were able to make sure that cost didn't inhibit empowerment and participation.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Peter. Sounds incredibly supportive. Lorraine, what are the career progression opportunities for those who start a data apprenticeship in the NHS?
Okay, well, we do advertise obviously for apprentices, or we have staff that are identified within the PD or the personal development plans to do apprenticeships as well. But the ones that we've started with, we bring them in as a band 5, which is the level 4 data analyst we did, or business analyst, or software developers, and they get aligned with teams so that they get the experience from that team and support and developed within that team. And I'm pleased to say all our data apprentices are going to be in employment because all the teams have said, yes, we want them. So it has been really successful. Obviously, there's a process to go through because it's NHS, so we have to go through the whole process to get them aligned with those roles. But it has been proved very successful for them as well. We've also got our what we call the National Competency Framework that we are now starting to implement for data and analytical staff. Oh, Pete, you've got your hand up for something. Did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, Lorraine, that answered Naveed's point very beautifully about how it fills in the the vacancy rate, because all these candidates that are now walking into full-time, well-paid employment roles within data analysts have been supported and developed and have been able to show their real potential with the team. And without people like Lorraine, these individuals would not have had the opportunity, and more importantly for the NHS, these roles would have remained vacant. So well done, Lorraine.
Thank you. Yes, so that's what we're working towards. So as I say, now the NCF forget the skills gaps and put pathways in there for staff, so that we have an industry-wide standard, so that they can come in and obviously be same regionally, so that we can say they've got these skills at this level, and and identify clear pathways.
Fantastic, thank you. Tuli, final question, no pressure. What advice would you provide parents and guardians or potential apprentices to help them support their child's decision to pursue this career path?
I mean, I could go on about this forever. I won't. But my first piece of advice would be do some research. Have a look at kind of what apprenticeships are, and look on any training provider's website. But if you go onto Cambridge Spark's website, we've got some great case studies of the achievements that people have made and why they're so impactful. To Lorraine's point earlier, I think it's something like 90% of people that do an apprenticeship remain in employment and go on to do career progression. So I mean, that stat speaks for itself, really. And another thing I would say is, as part of my role, I speak to a lot of chief data officers or quite senior people that work in data within NHS organisations. And more, they tell me that they would prefer to see somebody who wants to do an apprenticeship or has completed an apprenticeship than someone who may have done a degree, because they see the value in the work experience that they have. And whilst they can be challenging, Asta mentioned this earlier, that the managing, the learning and the working at the same time, if you're disciplined and determined, you will be successful. You will see results because you're held accountable for it.
Fantastic.
My advice is do it.
2 words. That's brilliant. Guys, thank you so much. What a great panel. I've certainly learned so much. I really hope everybody on the call has as well. Again, very conscious of time. We could all talk for hours, I'm sure. But I'm going to pass you back to Sarah Blundell now. Sarah, we wanted to I know that you've been answering lots of questions in the chat. I don't know if there's any that are left over, but I know that we were going to take a little bit of time to really talk about maybe the frequency of some of the apprenticeships and the data sphere that have arisen and been released in November, December and January, where we can find the opportunities. I know we're going to detail this in the email, but do you have like some final words before we go to questions?
Yeah, there's obviously been lots of fantastic questions in the chat that I've obviously been trying to answer. So in essence, yes, the jobs for the apprenticeships are not recruited through a centralized scheme. They do come up as individual apprenticeship opportunities, or maybe in the case of Arden and Jem, maybe they'll sort of take on a few in the recruitment at the same time. But the idea is those posts, they are individually posted on NHS Jobs. So a good example is within December, there were 8 data related apprenticeships that were basically offered that obviously were out. There are currently 2 that are out that have been released since the beginning of January. Obviously it's not an ideal time for things to be coming out, because obviously they will have had a bit of a slowdown over the Christmas period for new things to be added onto the system. So these types of things will gear up as the year. So that's why it's really important, as Peter said, to get your profiles on, to be registered, to set up your email alerts so that we can. It's really important to also note we have a LinkedIn live page where we cross post all of the data and analytics apprenticeships that are being put on NHS Jobs. We're cross posting them on our LinkedIn, so you could just follow the academy on the LinkedIn. Similarly, obviously, if you are in the Northwest, they do provide a foundation level, level 2 apprenticeship, level 3 apprenticeship schemes that they're offering through that you can then also register your interest when it reopens and do those types of things. There's obviously people asking questions about placements and all this stuff. We'll make sure that we put as much of that information out. A lot of the NHS placement schemes currently are geared up around undergraduate placements, or, you know, related to university. One of the things we definitely are going to be looking into now is the T-level placement opportunities, since that's obviously been brought up recently. So Naveed and I will get our heads together and see what we can do about that. Etc. One thing obviously to mention that I think has come up on this as well is the fact that a lot of these apprenticeships, when people come in, they might be coming in to do the entry, their foundation level, but actually once they've then stayed in their employer and have got a permanent job, it's very common for us to then continue on putting them on the degree apprenticeship program. So it tends to then be a run through. So you'll have people that then progress to do the level 5 and level 6 and then get that sort of degree level qualification once they're in their permanent positions.
Brilliant. Well, that was the quickest wrap up of NHS apprentices I've ever heard. Well done, you. Andy, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I couldn't possibly say anything else that Sarah hasn't already covered.
Great. I'm quite conscious that we're near the hour. There are some questions in the chat. I think it would be really positive if we were to look at the chat. We can put together some questions that we'll put together on a recruitment document that we'll send out to you in the next couple of days with every single link. We'll talk about Cambridge Spark, the LinkedIn Academy page, all of the links that Sarah's mentioned today, so that you've got as much information as you can to educate yourself after today's meeting, be able to push that and have some positive conversations with your students as well. I think today's session has been incredible. I hope you've all enjoyed it. We've got a lot of thanks coming out. I think the only thing left for me to say is a huge thank you to everybody that took part in today's panel session.